Welcome. I am Eric Unfiltered. Here I discuss news, politics, and whatever else I find interesting, along with my very colorful, unfiltered commentary. If you would like to follow me on social media, I am on X at Eric Not Sorry, and on Truth or Facebook at Eric Unfiltered Podcast. I hope you enjoy. Now let's get on with the show. How's everybody doing today? I hope you are doing well. As for me, per usual, I am caffeinated, medicated, and never regulated, so let's freaking go! Oh my god! Trump is sending the Marines into LA! People are gonna die! Obviously, I'm joking. But yes, that is some of the sentiment I have seen on social media, so I want to cover some of that stuff. After, it's almost kind of a follow-up to yesterday's episode regarding the rioting, the fiery but mostly peaceful protests going on in L.A. So I want to actually, before I get into the whole Marines, I wanted to talk about the National Guard. Because for years, I actually, when it came to who was in charge of the National Guard and how they get deployed and so on and so forth, I actually was not 100% on it. And so I looked it up because we got a thing called the smartphone, and it's got stuff in there that teaches you, like book stuff. So I went out to Grok AI. If you don't know what Grok AI is, it's an AI feature on X. But, again, it's an AI, so take it with a grain of salt. But I looked up, and this is all I typed in, because again, I don't know, because right now you got the people pointing fingers. Trump sent in the National Guard. That was wrong, and he incited the violence, and he can't do that, and finger pointing and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, let's let me look into this, because like I said, So I went to Grok, and all I typed in was, who has say over when and where the National Guard gets deployed? That's it. Short and sweet. Oh, and by the way, if you hear a humming in the background, it's just my air conditioning going on. It'll kick off and on every once in a while. It's not very hot today. It's just muggy as shit. So if you hear a little hum, that's what that is. Okay, so in the United States, the National Guard operates under a dual federal-state authority, and the deployment authority depends on the context and mission. To which, when I first read this, I went, all right, cool. All right, so number one here, well, no particular order, but I'm just going to go in order. All right, state authority, Title 32, or state active duty. Governors have primary control over the National Guard within their respective states when the Guard is not federalized. They can deploy the National Guard for state emergencies, such as natural disasters, hurricanes and floods, civil unrest. Do you hear that, Gavin Newsom? Okay, sorry. Or other state-specific needs. The governor's authority stems from their role as the commander-in-chief of the state's National Guard when it is in state service. They can activate the Guard under state active duty or Title 32 status. The latter involves federal funding but state control. Example, a governor might deploy the National Guard to assist with disaster relief or maintain order during protests. Do you hear that, Gavin Newsom? Okay. Moving on. Federal authority. Title 10. The President of the United States or the Secretary of Defense can federalize the National Guard, placing it under federal control for national missions, such as overseas deployment, homeland security operation, or support for federal emergencies. This is done under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, which shifts the Guard from state to federal command. Congress may also play a role by authorizing or funding federal missions. Example, the National Guard was federalized for deployment to Iraq and Afghanistan or for COVID-19 response efforts coordinated at the national level. Interesting. Okay. Key considerations. Chain of command. When not federalized, the National Guard reports to the state's adjutant general, I think I said that right, appointed by the governor. When federalized, it falls under the Department of Defense and the relevant military command structure. Funding and approval. State deployments are typically state-funded. Though federal funds can be used under Title 32 with approval from the Department of Defense. Federal deployments, Title 10, are fully funded and controlled by the federal government. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Are you learning out there? I know I'm getting my learn on. All right. I know I'm going to totally butcher these words, but you can please laugh at my expense. I'm not that educated. All right, so Posse Comitatus Act? I don't know. This law limits use of federalized, Title 10, Guard forces for domestic law enforcement unless explicitly authorized by Congress or the President. However, under state control, governors can use the Guard for law enforcement purposes, as this is not restricted by the Act. Coordination and requests. Governors may request federal assistance, example from FEMA or the Department of Defense, to deploy the Guard for large-scale emergencies which may involve federal funding or coordination. In some cases, the National Guard Bureau, a joint activity of the Department of Defense, facilitates coordination between states and federal government. In summary, governors control National Guard deployments for state missions, while the President or Secretary of Defense controls federal deployments. The specific context, state emergency, federal mission, or disaster response determines who has authority. Interesting. So over the last few days, because of the air quotes protesting riots in LA, President Trump called in the National Guard. Now there has been some finger pointing, and look, I don't know all the nitty gritty. I'm not on boots on the ground in LA because fuck that shit. So there has been finger pointing that Trump illegally did this and he can't do that, and he sent in the National Guard and so on and so forth. Okay. I don't know all. I have not been informed by someone or some place that I respect and knows a lot more than me. I don't know what channels, what was involved, or the reason was given by the president to put the National Guard into L.A. I don't know. I don't know that. Sorry, I don't know. But again, people like Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass, another fucking nitwit, another DEI loser, are pointing fingers at President Trump, saying it's unconstitutional what he did, and he can't do that. And, well, technically, he can. Now, again, what are the proper channels? What are the proper switches that need to be pulled, or the levers of power and all that? I don't know all of the legal shit. I know Newsom is suing Trump over whatever. I mean, when are the lawsuits not happening, right? Now, did President Trump technically violate the state's authority over the National Guard when he deployed them to L.A.? I don't know. I know, like I said, there are people saying yes, and then there are people saying no. I don't know. Again, I don't know. I don't know if he did he called in the National Guard so they could protect federal employees, maybe, and therefore he is just and allowed to do that because it's for, a federal emergency, so to speak. I'm doing air quotes here. Maybe, I don't know. Again, I don't know. There's finger pointing, and there's a lot more legal shit that would bore me if I knew how to read all of that, because it's so convoluted and so much red tape and shit. So did the president step on Gavin's toes? Definitely, I am sure, but did he do so unlawfully? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I just wanted to read that synopsis regarding the National Guard because, again, Gavin Newsom is pointing fingers saying Trump, he wasn't allowed to do this and he did it anyway, kind of shit. Maybe he did. Maybe Gavin Newsom's right. Maybe he is. I don't know. Like I said, I don't fucking like the guy. I think he's a total dickhead, greaseball motherfucker, but maybe he's right. I don't know. I'm just putting the information out there. However, which this will bring me to the president sending in 700 Marines, to which I also want to talk about how if you think you hate the mainstream media or even local news, you don't hate them enough. Because yesterday when I heard this news broke in the afternoon, I was actually watching Reese on the radio, and I saw something on X. Tim Pool posted it because he shared the article from the Wall Street Journal, and I was like, yo, what? So this morning I'm watching the news, and they're talking about President Trump has sent 700 Marines to Los Angeles due to the protesters. On to the next story, to which I looked at the TV and was like, that's it? Really? Wow. That's it. There's no other information. Now, I know why those news channels, not all of them, I do give credit where credit's due. Some of them did go into a little bit deeper description of why and what the Marines doing in L.A., what they're going to be doing and so on. But some of them, like I said, didn't. So I know why they do that. It's done on purpose. Because the vast majority of us, myself, you, all of us rubes, aren't going to dig into, any more detail. I mean, I do, obviously, what I'm talking about. But most people, the average Joe Schmo out there, the masses are asses. They're not gonna dig into stuff. They basically hear a headline and then they make an opinion and they move on. Now, when I hear any news outlet, whether it's in print or on television or even streaming, and they say something as just like I just said, President Trump has sent 700 Marines to L.A. because of the protesters, and then that's it, what does that make you think? Because I know what that makes me think. That makes me think that, like, armored personnel carriers, APCs, are going to be driving down the 405, and Marines are going to be pointing M16s at American civilians. That's the image that pops up into my head, and that's why they do it. The media, not only do they blatantly lie often, but there are times where they just leave certain things out. The article is truthful, or the headline is truthful, but it's misleading. It's not necessarily fake news. It's just not 100% truth. It's kind of like if a woman suspects her man for cheating on her. And she's like, did you sleep with my best friend? No, I never slept with your best friend. Are you sure? Yeah, I never slept with your best friend. Okay, then. But yet he turns around and goes, but I touched her booty a lot. But that's not the question she asked. So he was being truthful. He was also being unfaithful, but he was being truthful. So the reason why they do this, like I said, they do it on purpose, especially when, let's face it, the vast majority of the mainstream media, they don't like Donald Trump. Okay, that's not a fucking secret. And I'm not saying you have to like the guy. That's not my point here. It's read between the lines of what they're not printing or not telling you. So, I want to say this real quick, because if any president, I don't give a damn if it's President Trump, if it's Joe Schmo in 8 years or 10 years, or any president, I don't give a damn. But if a president of the United States gave the order to the military to use live rounds on civilians or, hell, even illegal aliens unprovoked. No, I'm totally dead set against that. No, that's no. I don't support that at all. Now, again, if a citizen or an illegal alien were to fire live rounds at someone in our military, well, they kind of fucked around, and now I hope they enjoy the find out portion of the program. Because, again, they were the aggressor. But no, if any president gave the green light to our military to use live rounds on the citizens, I am 100% against that. Okay? Just putting that out there. So, the reason why, like I said, I wanted to talk about this is because people, especially if you out there, don't like Trump. And you hear Marines are being deployed to L.A., that's probably your first thought. I know it was. That's the image I had in my head. It's not what I thought or believed, but that's the image that popped into my head. Like, whoa, I can see uniformed Marines walking down, Rodeo Drive or wherever the fuck these protests are happening. And that could not be farther from the truth. The reason why the Marines, have been sent to L.A. is to protect federal buildings and federal employees. Now, I know there are people out there going, rabble and whatnot. Okay. Yes, I know that is, that's what we have been told. So that is what I am relaying. It does not mean, it's martial law or the president is pushing for martial law. No. Like I said, the Marines have been sent in. Hell, I believe it's the Pentagon or the DOD. I think it's the Pentagon right now is basically writing up the orders for these Marines. So, strategy and what to do in situations and so on and so forth, which is kind of a good thing, Yeah, let's kind of put some guardrails on, what you're going to do and stuff. I'm all for that. But right now, the Marines are there. I don't even know if they're actually, been told to leave where they are. I don't know. As of right now, I don't know. But the reason why that they are there is that is going to be their job to protect federal buildings and federal employees. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I don't. Now, as I stated earlier in the episode, when it comes to the whole National Guard debate, I don't know. And by the time it goes to court, even if the court says, yes, President Trump, you were in the wrong. You weren't allowed to do that. The rioting will be done. The protesting will be over. ICE will have moved on to another part of the state or whatever. By the time it goes through the court system, it'll be, okay, most likely. I mean, I'm guessing. I'm guessing. But it's come on, dude. Get your shit together, Gavin Newsom. Mayor Bass, you fucking DEI hire. I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. Your shit was all on fire. The police were outnumbered. Were the police even told to stand down? I don't know, but I saw a lot of bricks and rocks and concrete being tossed at law enforcement. Yeah, you needed the fucking National Guard, bro. As I read earlier, thank you, AI Grok, civil unrest. You, Gavin Newsom, could have called in the National Guard. But you didn't. And you didn't want to. Because this is good optics for you. It is. Anybody that does not like Trump sees this. It doesn't matter what they feel about the illegal aliens or not. That's beside the point. It's, Trump called these people in, and look, fire and destruction and looting. It's all his fault. You allowed it to happen, dude. You allowed the reason why ICE is there doing their job in the first place to happen. Actually, some of you may not like this, but the real reason why there is a big problem with illegals in California isn't Gavin Newsom. I mean, yeah, he's a part of it, but Ronald Reagan actually allowed a lot of this to happen. Yes, he gave amnesty. So, that wasn't exactly wasn't a good decision. Hindsight, right? Hindsight. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope I gave you all some information, some stuff to think about maybe. But again, when it comes to the media, it doesn't matter if they're talking good or bad about a politician or a political subject or topic. Doesn't matter. Does not matter who. If they say something that you hear and you're like, yay, look into it a little deeper. What are they not telling you? Or if you're like, boo, screw that guy, look into it a little bit deeper. What are you not being told? You have the internet at your fingertips. So the next time when you're sitting on the toilet doing what you got to do, stop scrolling through stupid videos, even if they're cute videos of kitties. That's cool, but look stuff up. If you heard someone at work mention something, you were kind of curious. I don't know if this person's on this. Look it up while you're sitting there before you wipe. Look it up, or even afterwards. I mean, make yourself clean, but wash your hands and then look it up. The information's right there. It's right there. Just look it up. What do you think I fucking did? I'm a moron, but I know how to do internet search. Okay. Anywho's, I'm going to go eat some crayons and have another cup of coffee. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you didn't, tough shit. But if you did, please give it a like, share, follow me on the interwebs, tell your friends and all that good stuff. And until next time, keep being you.